back with Rob and Tony. Guys, what do you have to talk to us about today about to help our game masters?
Well, Rob and I were thinking about it, and we have quite a bit of experience in running sequels, tie-ins, callbacks, big, huge, sweeping campaigns. So that's kind of what we thought we'd like to share today.
Okay. So where do you start on something such a massive topic?
That is an excellent question, Garrett, and I'm glad you asked me that.
It's like you're not running for anything.
No, I think one of the most important things that you need in order to do that is a good foundation campaign. I don't know that you can go into any sort of game thinking, well, I'm going to turn this into 5 connected campaigns, or there's going to be a sequel to this somewhere down the road. I think that as you play a game, things are going to develop and come up naturally, and as that goes, you're going to get a feel of, hey, there could be something more to this. The players are really enjoying. I think that even though the story I have for this campaign is fine and gonna end at some point, there's definitely more potential for storytelling in the future.
So I think that's a great place to start. Is I think you're probably doomed to fail if you're going to start a campaign and with the idea of like there's going to be 6 more of these and they're all going to be awesome and everyone's going to love it because it's great. Because inevitably we'll probably find out that while you may think it's super great, maybe the players aren't as into it as you think they would be, or they are into it, but they don't want to spend, perhaps several years of their lives, depending on how often you play or what you play, focused on that one thing. I know with us, more often than not, we'll play something, have a heck of a lot of fun with it, and then usually with me running, Josh and Tony will be like, "So, when are we playing more of this game or sequels to this game or whatever, Rob?" So I definitely think go in focused on the campaign that you're doing. And if there's going to be a sequel or more to it, I think your players will probably will allude to that for you. I think that's a good first tip as far as.
Yes, and I think there is a big difference between organizing your game that way and extending your game. If you're running a kind of modular, episodic kind of campaign, you can go, okay, well, I finished this small arc, and we can still kind of continue go on to the next mission, the next arc, and everything. And that's all well and good, but I think a key to kind of establishing that sort of franchise, as it were, is ending a story and then picking it up sometime later.
Yeah, there's a lot of players. I'm sure it's probably a lot of people that if they do listen or play D&D especially, probably do play that one unending campaign. Or I know at least that that's a common trope
Mm-hmm.
of the one guy at work. He's GM for a long time. He said he and his friends were playing the same campaign for like 6 years or something, D&D, and they're like in epic levels and all this stuff and like the same characters, week after week after week, which is cool. I mean, if that's what you want to do, but there's that, and then there's the distinctive, a new campaign with different characters that maybe ties in, or that sequel to a campaign that maybe has the same characters, or maybe has those same characters from the first campaign as NPCs in the second one. I guess there's very stark differences between those types of games.
And kind of how I was thinking about this and breaking it down in my head is there's kind of 2 ways that you can connect campaigns. There's callbacks and tie-ins. So callbacks to me is where you're going to end a campaign, and you pick up your sequel sometime later, and you have lots of references to the past campaign. Like Rob said, you have characters come back as NPCs, or as just appearances, cameos, as it were. Or sometimes even as like a major NPC, but still an NPC, even if they were a main player character last time. Tie-ins are where you're going to have more of that concurrent flowing kind of thing, but that's separate yet still connected.
Hmm.
and we have experience with both of those things.
So, where would you classify this? For my Deadlands Noir thing, we ended with them crossing over to do a fight. It's basically an elder god on his own dimensional turf. And Mary's character decided even to bite into a severed tentacle of an elder god. And that altered the portal, so they go back through the portal and they go not from 1934 Deadlands Noir, they go into Hell on Earth, Mad Max Apocalypse 2084.
Same
And Mary's
character.
characters changed as mutants. They're the same characters, they're the same area, but they're kind of in the same family of settings. But now they basically have to figure out, if possible, how to get themselves back home.
I think that's probably halfway between the same ongoing campaign and a tie-in, probably. Because it seems like did you switch rules at all? Rule sets?
We're going to switch rules between Deadlands Noir. We're not going to change character sheets if you still have the things for, the setting rules for how to blackjack somebody or how to perform and sing to get abilities. I'm not throwing that out the door and saying, now here's your Hell on Earth character sheet. We just combine the character sheets.
Yeah, so that's definitely a tie-in. I mean, that's you kind of taking a brand new direction with the campaign, or almost like starting a new campaign in a lot of ways. But you have some of that same stuff. I at least think it sounds like a tie-in. I mean, it's not a sequel; it's sort of an ongoing story, but with a different kind of spin.
And I didn't even know I was going to do it until the last half hour of the campaign too. So
interesting.
I agree with Rob. I mean, that is fodder for a completely new, huge campaign arc where they're trying to find their way back, and with the different setting and people and rules and objects that they're going to run into and everything. It's definitely going to have an impact and a change on how those characters interact with the world. Now they might get back to where they started from, but that's a whole campaign's worth of stuff in between.
Especially Mary's character, who, because she basically swallowed a bit of an elder god before going through the portal, is now a mutant.
Exactly. So I mean that fundamentally changes that character in a way. That's gonna lead to hopefully all sorts of shenanigans.
If a player's character dies, then they're not going to have a character from the original campaign. They'll have a Mad Max style character, so that leads to even more interesting things. Yes,
now
it's a pretty good example.
I know for a little bit of our history, the first one that kind of got this treatment was our Game of Thrones campaign, which Rob ran a big, long 36 session campaign.
Wow.
And it was great. We all loved it. We got to the end, and it was fantastic. Great game. And then shortly after we ended, we were like, well, what happens now? This is a world that after 36 sessions we were very invested in. The politics, the intrigues of the houses of Game of Thrones. We were very much invested in. At the end of the campaign, my character was, king of Westeros. I had 2 kids, who are now the prince, the heirs of the whole kingdom. What happens to them? So what Rob did is we did the sequel. It was about 20 years after the fact. And and now instead of playing the king, Toten Lancaster, I played his son, Nathan Lancaster, and Toten became, an NPC. And he was the king, a bit removed from the throne and everything in terms of just his influence and political, influence and everything. But he was still there and very much a part of the game, but more so in terms of how my character felt. But I was playing a completely new character, but we still had all of these ties to that world. We got to see, flash forward 20 years, what's different? How has the political spectrum changed? So there was enough differences to give us a huge change while still having that air of familiarity.
Yeah, it was the same rule set. We used the Green Ronin, Song of Ice and Fire rule set for both games. But first campaign, Tony played Toten, who was this amazing swordsman, eventually ended up being the best swordsman in the world, pretty much. And Josh played a maester, who was more scholarly, historical character. And then in the sequel, Tony played Nathan, who was much more charismatic and talky, persuasive, and into intrigues and whatnot, and a fine sword fighter, but nothing compared to what his father was, Tony's first character. And then Josh ended up playing a Dothraki character who was like hardcore archer, really military fighty, and they kind of flipped roles on it, and it was neat because it let them see both sides of the system so that they didn't get to experience the first time. So that was definitely a rewarding part of the sequel to Thrones, I think. And it was interesting. It was a whole new game, absolutely brand new world, but in the exact same world that they already knew, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was its own experience, its whole own story and everything. Where those characters grew and everything, but it was just in that world that we knew, but just changed just enough that things were different. We didn't know everything. When we left at the end of the first campaign, we knew exactly where everyone in that world stood. Jumping forward 20 years, things have changed. What's new? What do we think we know? So that it was a great time too. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and we still have works for the trilogy.
Someday.
Someday.
Someday,
where we'll jump forward, like 60 years, where now I play, Nathan's great grandson or something like that. I forget exactly where in the line he is.
More of a
like 60-year jump or something.
Under style kind of stuff.
So like that's definitely in the works. Now, the other kind of big example we have is our tie-in, which is what we're currently working on. And that is our World of Darkness campaigns, which started from Josh, actually, in a strange way. He ran a small hunter campaign for us, as 8 sessions or something like that. Rob and I both played. We ran through our story. It was great. And then Rob goes, well, I want to run a World of Darkness campaign. I want to run Vampire. I think it's going to be really cool. So yeah, I mean, you wrote that up, and how about you tell us how you kind of got inspired to start tying things in?
Yeah. So if anyone's unfamiliar, World of Darkness, there's several versions, but one we're talking about is New World of Darkness, the first edition of it. Basically has a core rulebook with all the rules, and then it has several secondary, I guess, rulebooks, if you want to call them, that you can buy that are different game lines in the same rule set. So there's vampires, there's werewolves, there's mages, there's changelings and fae, hunter, which is hunting those sort of monsters of the night. So it's kind of the whole game line setup, sort of similar to the 40K rule set, where they have it's the same rule set, but you could play different aspects of the universe, I guess. So yeah, Josh had did that campaign, and I really, really liked World of Darkness. I'd always wanted to run it, and big fan of the Vampire Bloodlines video game, as a lot of people are. If anyone listens to this, they're probably going to reinstall it now after I've said that. But I was like, I want to run a vampire game. I want to run my vampire game. So I put a lot of work into it. Actually, probably I put more work into that campaign than I probably did any campaign since Thrones, to be honest. And I did a lot of original characters, did a lot of work on it. But I also happened to put some characters that were in Josh's campaign in it that I brought in, like Tony's character from it, some of the NPCs that Josh made. And we had a great time with Vampire. It's probably, for me at least, on par, maybe just below Game of Thrones in terms of the game I'm proudest of running. And we started getting near the end of it, and we were talking about how cool it is to have a lot of those characters come back, recur from Josh's campaign. And we started talking about the different game lines that are for World of Darkness, like Mage and Werewolf. And I think it was Tony who was like, wouldn't it be awesome if, like, kind of like how Marvel has its different superhero movies, and then they, like, all come in together and stuff? And we were like, yeah. And we started talking about, like, the Suicide Squad movie that's coming out, and like, wow, we could do a game with like all those different, werewolves and vampires for the secret government, strike team guys. That would be cool. And then it sort of expanded to, well, we could do that too, but like, what if we play like Mage and have like a whole campaign with Mage and stuff? And I was like, yeah. The next day I was like, Tony, I have the entire World of Darkness cinematic universe ready. Let's go.
Because what it was is, Rob was like, well, we're getting towards the end of Vampire, and I want to run one campaign in each of these major lines. So we're gonna finish Vampire, and then I want to run a Mage campaign, and then I want to run a Werewolf campaign, and then I want to run a Changeling campaign, and it was just that, Suicide, just Avengers came out, or Suicide Squad trailer, or whatever the hell it was, and he definitely said that, like, what if they were all connected, and we just took off running with that. So now, first of all, before I forget, you also tied it in with with our Cthulhu game too, with some characters. Yeah, with Bonato, he was one of the Cthulhu guys, and
stuff.
Yeah, so yeah, the Syndicate is obviously a big Cthulhu mafia kind of thing. So they're the Syndicate in our World of Darkness campaign. But so now as we play through, our campaigns are very separate. So we did Vampire, then we did Mage, and we're in the middle of Werewolf now. But there are these threads that connect everything. So from Josh's original game, Rob and my characters from that have formed Strike Team Fenrir, which is basically a Suicide Squad where they're collecting the monsters of the night to control and send out on the missions for the government and everything. So the very, very, very basic version of that showed up in Vampire before we even had any of these plans. And like the first recruit got taken. So then when we were doing Mage, the early formation of that team showed up to capture, a vampire while we were playing Mage, and, interacted with our Mage characters. So there was like that tie in there where we know we're in the same universe, even though we're in a completely different city, completely different rule, completely different theme, all that stuff. Another thing is in Vampire, we met a big, huge, scary werewolf guy. And now, he's on his own. He's trying to find his own pack after, events in Vampire, and he's slowly like making his way across the country and into each of our other games. And we all know the end goal is all of these characters that we've made through these campaigns coming together to fight, the Thanos of the World of Darkness universe, if you will. So we know we're building towards that, but it just like when you watch Avengers or anything, the tie-ins make everything much deeper, much more connected. Rob, goes, okay, we're going to switch scenes. Josh, it's Lucas, your vampire character, back in Gateway, Indiana, and everything. And you're sitting at your table, and we around the table go, yes, and cheer because we're back to that character again, So it's seeing those familiar faces at unexpected times, knowing that they're still there, that they're doing other things, that they have their fingers in, the plots of our current campaign that just make it, exponentially crazier and deeper.
And Rob, what's your thought on how do you do this? How do you pull these strings? How do you bring this all together?
Lots of liquor. No. I definitely have started a binder where I literally write notes of like, Rob, don't forget about this quest line or this storyline down the road. Like, make sure this happens. But I definitely focus on whatever campaign that we're in, and that's what's most important. So, we're in Werewolf right now, and there is a very important storyline to Werewolf. There's a antagonist and problems that they're dealing with. But interspersed in that, I'm able to kind of throw in shout outs to the other campaigns, to do like one-shot scenes of things are changing in these other cities that we know for these other characters. They may not know why, but they want to know why, and it's interesting in that way. And I have, like he said, the werewolf character, Heart's Blood. I have this huge arc for him where every campaign he gets a little bit closer to building the pack that he needs to build for the end game of things. And I don't know. I guess I'm able to do it because I love it so much. I love World of Darkness, the system, the world. Probably more so now because Tony and Josh are so into it. And Lauren, who never got into our gaming stuff, decided she wanted to make a character for Mage last campaign and played with us pretty much through the whole thing. And now in Werewolf, she is pretty much a full seat at the table 24/7 while we're playing. And she now cares about World of Darkness and her characters, and she wants, and like we basically made her care about role playing in a way that she never did before.
There are two kind of major events that have happened through the course of the World of Darkness cinematic universe. One is I was like, you know what, I'm never gonna buy these books. I'm not that invested in the system. Rob and Josh both have them. I can borrow them at the table. It's all good and everything.
First of all, at the beginning of Vampire, Tony's
I didn't even want to play.
I don't care. Vampires are gay. I'm just going to make a fucking murder monster. It'll be fine. And then, like, halfway through, he's, like, bawling over his, like, human existence and what it means to be a monster and to be human. He's like, fuck you, Rob.
Yes. So the end of that story is last week I bought all of the World of Darkness books because I was like, I owe it to the system now. I'm so invested. I just want to look at this stuff all the time. So that happened. The other thing is Lauren would go to her room, would call us idiots for our weekend role playing. Oh, that's so stupid. I don't get it. Whatever. And like Rob said, now she is full on role playing nerd, and we love it.
Writing posts for it every week. She writes a new post for the game so I can read before we play.
Yeah. She said to me, she's like, when your werewolf book gets here, I want to look at it so I can look at the powers and, make sure that I know what I'm going to get. And so I can think about some stuff. And, so it's that breadth, that width of, the campaigns as a whole, each one is important, but as a whole, is just so much more powerful because of it. And, kind of like Rob said, each campaign is important. We're learning that, there's this huge Thanos type threat out there, but each campaign is a different aspect of what's going on or how it's going to resolve. So, he's never bearing the lead, just being like, oh, this is what's happening. Now let's go to the next campaign so you can, just do that. Everything we see is, another piece of the puzzle clicking into place. So, it's not giving too much away and still lets each campaign have its own importance. And it's going great.
Yeah, I'd say sequels are great. I think that's probably the easiest thing someone should try if you're going to try anything. Take a world you already know, characters you already know, and then add to it is probably the easiest. I don't expect many people will try the 6 campaign long sweeping Marvel movie, thing that we're doing. But, if you do it, don't do it because you want to say that you've done it or to like brag to people or to yourself. Do it because you want to. I mean, that's why it's been so easy for me. I mean, it's hard work, but I spend hours upon hours every week on World of Darkness one way or another. A lot of my free time on it. But it's not work. It's fun. I love it. I love the characters that we've made. I love the characters that Tony, Josh, and Lauren make that make the world richer. I want to learn more about it as things go on. I want them to learn what stuff I've come up with. And I mean, it's a labor of love. It's made people who didn't, Lauren, who didn't role play ever, really care about it, be excited about it every week. It's made Tony, who didn't really care about the system and that world, a huge fan of it now. I mean, Josh, who's just always awesome with everything, is just along with the ride, and it's his fault in the first place. And I think that's what's so great about it. If you can find that perfect group or perfect opportunity, something like that, do it because it's fun. That's what gaming is. Gaming about stuff to remember and things you can talk about long into the night after it's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just in to tap in on your sequels thing being kind of the main one that you'll see most people do, players and GMs and everything will talk about, oh, do you remember when I had that dwarf assassin guy? Oh my God, he was so cool. He did this thing or that thing. Oh, do you remember when I was that, starfighter pilot guy? Oh, that was so cool when I did this. I have such good memories of that character. When you, after a certain amount of time, go back to that and, do that sequel, you go, hey, guess who shows up? It's, that starfighter guy. And the players are going to go, oh my God, I remember. And, it's just that instant callback, that instant, recognition, memories, and nostalgia is an insanely powerful feeling that people can have, and it will just drive that that connection to the game home for them in a lot of ways.
GMs always want to have that like really awesome NPC that's just super cool and look at all this awesome stuff he does, and a lot of times it falls flat because the PCs don't give a shit probably about them. I mean that's a little harsh maybe, but it's not their character. They don't care about whoever you made, even if
they're less invested.
Yeah, but when Tony's previous character, King Toten, walks into the room and he speaks and he's awesome and everyone thinks he's super cool, well, they do too because they know who that character is. That's their character who's really powerful and really cool and really strong, and it's going to make them care way more. So you get to have your cake and you get to eat it too, more or less. Having this awesome NPC who's just a player character who's evolved into a new setting or to a new game. So that's a useful tool to have in your back pocket also with sequels.
I guess one last thing I will say that I just thought of is it can provide a somewhat closure too to some things. I was just thinking about our Second Thrones campaign and how in it Josh's character from the first campaign died. And it was totally right. It was totally natural and everything. But, is that kind of what we were talking about earlier, that continuation and finally that closure, what happened to that character? How did he go through life? And we got to see the end of his life as opposed to, you end a campaign and they go off and you never know. So there's just a lot of options and avenues that you can explore with kind of going back to that old material while still keeping it very fresh, very new.
Yeah, I remember I was like, Josh, I think I'm gonna kill Lons, but I'm not gonna do that without asking you first. And if you're not cool with that, whatever will happen, and he's gonna live and stuff. And I remember Josh, I think he like took a real deep breath and sighed, and he's like, "No, Rob, it's the right choice, you bastard," or whatever. and it was, and I mean, it hurt. I mean, it hurt me to do, but it was right in the moment, and it's interesting. You do get to see that whole life of the character from beginning to end, and you get closure on them, whether it's happy closure or sad closure. You do get that kind of finished feeling about it. And that's a very interesting sort of aspect. Of course, that's the goal, is to make your players really care about the world and the character. That's the fun of role playing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's not about dice. It's about the stories and the characters.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, thank you, Rob and Tony, for talking about sequels. Next time, we will talk about the gaming bookshelf, what is in there, and how you use it.
Yes.
Sounds good. Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you.